I never imagined I'd stand on my own front porch, keys in hand, unable to open the door to the house I bought 32 years ago. The brass lock gleamed in the morning sun, new and unfamiliar. I tried my key again, twisting harder this time, hoping maybe I was just tired or distracted, but it wouldn't budge. At first, I thought maybe my son, Daniel, had decided to upgrade the security without telling me. He had moved back home a year earlier with his wife, Marissa, after losing his job. I had welcomed them with open arms. Family takes care of family, that's what I had always believed. Still, something felt wrong. I knocked. Footsteps approached from inside, slow and deliberate. The door opened halfway, and there stood Marissa, arms crossed, expression cool. "Oh," she said flatly, "you're back early." "Back early, from my own grocery run." I forced a smile. "My key isn't working. Did you change the locks?" She hesitated for only a second before shrugging. "Yes, we needed more security." "We?" I repeated, confused. She leaned against the doorframe like she owned it. "Daniel and I decided it's best if we have more control over who comes and goes." My chest tightened. "Marissa, this is my house." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Well, it doesn't feel like it anymore. You're barely here, and honestly, you make things tense." I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "Where, Daniel?" "At work," she replied quickly, "and he agrees with me." The words felt like a slap. Daniel had always been close to me. I raised him alone after his father passed away. We had weathered everything together, financial struggles, grief, long nights of uncertainty. I trusted him. "Can I come inside?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. "I think you should stay somewhere else for a while. We need space." Before I could respond, she closed the door. The click of the new lock echoed louder than any shout. That night I stayed at my sister Farah's small apartment across town. I barely slept. My mind replayed the moment over and over, the way Marissa looked at me, the finality in her voice. I kept thinking Daniel would call. He didn't. At dawn, exhaustion turned into something else, a quiet, steady anger. I wasn't a guest in that house. I had paid every mortgage installment. I had signed every paper. My name was on the deed. And yet I had been locked out like a stranger. Farah sat beside me at the kitchen table, sipping tea. "What are you going to do?" she asked gently. I stared into my cup. "I don't want to fight, but I'm not going to be pushed out of my own life." She nodded slowly. "Then you need to remind them whose house it is." I arrived at my home just after sunrise the next morning. The neighborhood was quiet, birds chirping, sprinklers ticking softly on green lawns. Everything looked normal, almost peaceful. I used the spare garage key I had kept hidden for years. They had forgotten about it. Inside, the house smelled like Marissa's heavy floral candles. Furniture had been rearranged. My favorite reading chair was gone from the living room. My late husband's photographs were stacked face down on a side table. My heart sank, but my resolve hardened. I walked through each room slowly, noticing how my home had been transformed without my permission. The guest room where they stayed had spilled into the rest of the house, shoes scattered near the door, loud decor replacing the simple things I loved. In the master bedroom, my closet was half empty. My clothes were shoved into plastic bins in the corner. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. Instead, I began quietly gathering every item that belonged to Daniel and Marissa: clothes, boxes, electronics, decorative pieces she had added. I carried them outside one by one, placing them neatly on the front lawn. Neighbors glanced over, curiosity flickering in their eyes. I nodded politely but said nothing. By the time the sun climbed higher, a small mountain of belongings covered the grass. Then I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and waited. Daniel's car pulled into the driveway around 9. He stepped out first, looking confused. Marissa followed behind him, and then she froze when she saw her belongings spread across the lawn. "What is this?" she shouted. I stood calmly. "Your things. You changed the locks yesterday and told me to leave my own house, so now I'm reclaiming it." Daniel's face went pale. "Mom, what's going on?" I met his eyes. I was locked out, told to stay somewhere else, without warning. He turned to Marissa, shock creeping into his expression. "You said you talked to her. You said she agreed to give us space." Marissa's jaw tightened. "I did what was best for us." "For us," Daniel repeated weakly. I handed him a folder, copies of the house deed and mortgage records. "This house is legally mine, Daniel. I let you stay here because you needed help, but I won't be pushed out." He flipped through the papers, guilt washing over his face. Marissa scoffed. "So you're throwing us out now, after everything we've been through?" I took a slow breath. "No, I'm setting boundaries. You're welcome to stay, but only if we respect each other, and no one locks me out of my own home." Silence stretched between us. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "Marissa, you changed the locks without telling me the full story." She crossed her arms. "I was tired of living under someone else's rules." "It's her house," he whispered. The argument that followed was messy and emotional. Old frustrations surfaced, Daniel's stress about unemployment, Marissa's resentment about feeling like a guest, my own hurt about being sidelined in my own home. But something shifted when Daniel finally looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have talked to you. I didn't realize how far things had gone." Marissa stood quietly, anger slowly fatting into something more uncertain. After a long pause, she spoke softly. "I felt small here, like nothing was mine, and instead of talking about it, I tried to take control." Her honesty caught me off guard. "I understand wanting space," I said gently, "but not at the cost of respect." We stood there for a long time, surrounded by boxes and unspoken emotions. Finally, Daniel helped carry their belongings back inside, not as a takeover, but as a reset. The weeks that followed weren't easy. We had uncomfortable conversations. We created clear boundaries, shared responsibilities, private spaces, honest communication. Daniel found part-time work and slowly regained his confidence. Marissa apologized sincerely one evening, tears in her eyes. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "I let my insecurity turn into control. Thank you for giving us another chance." I squeezed her hand. Family means learning how to grow together, even after mistakes. Little by little, the house began to feel like home again, not just mine, but ours in a healthier way. The living room regained its balance, my husband's photos back on the wall, her decorative touches added respectfully. We shared dinners without tension. Laughter returned, tentative at first, then genuine. Months later, Daniel and Marissa saved enough money to rent their own apartment nearby. The day they moved out felt bittersweet, but peaceful. As they loaded the last box into the car, Marissa hugged me tightly. "Thank you for standing your ground that day," she whispered. "It forced all of us to face the truth." I smiled softly. Sometimes love means drawing lines, not just giving endlessly. Daniel kissed my forehead. "You taught me what real strength looks like, Mom." I watched them drive away, feeling proud, not because I had won a conflict, but because we had grown through it. That evening, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. The lawn was quiet again, no piles of belongings, no tension hanging in the air. Just peace, and the comforting knowledge that my home wasn't just a building. It was a place where respect, love, and boundaries lived side by side, stronger than any lock on any door.